The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hello there. Obi-Wan Kenobi here, also known as James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan,
Jedi Master Plo Koon,
and many other characters in the world of Star Wars. You're listening to... Shh, don't tell. It's The Secrets of Star Wars. May the Force be with you.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 148.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Mike Creavey, a.k.a. Old Ben, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Which, by the way, I just realized I think every single time I introduce myself as Old Ben, it's more true, I guess, than it was the last time, because I'm older. Anyway, please be sure to share this podcast on Twitter and Facebook. Let us know how we're doing by leaving us a review, and there's a lot of ways to do that, so we'll get to a little more of that later. But we've got a lot to cover tonight, because we're talking this week about 2 episodes of The Bad Batch, Season 2, and then that's Episode 7, The Clone Conspiracy, and Episode 8, Truth and Consequences. So joining me tonight to unpack these episodes are Kathryn Laffrey. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Hello, happy to be here.
Oh, glad to have you. And Jason Eugea, here we are again, talking about Bad Batch. Welcome.
I am so excited to talk about these episodes.
And I do have to say up front, I don't know if you guys did, I had a ham solo segment thing this week, or maybe it was last week. I depending on when people are listening to this, they might have already heard this because I shared it with the folks who were on last week, but I submitted my deli order as Gunji after episode 6, but I spelled it wrong. I was so embarrassed later to discover I had spelled it with a Y.
I just had my liabation or liabation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was. Did you have? Was there one of those or?
Yeah. Well, I found a beer in Wisconsin called Darth Porter.
That's right.
Had a Darth Vader on the front of it. Very interesting looking. I wasn't about to drink it.
Makes you wonder. It's like, I don't know. What does that even? What would you do to make that a thematic Vader beer? I don't know. So,
what does the dark side taste like?
Yeah. And I don't know that there was any news per se this week. Anything. I mean, we're of course counting down to Mandalorian season 3, which is exciting. Which, I mean, I guess one of the benefits of them launching March 1st is, February is the shortest month of the year. So I we're discovering like, oh my gosh, it's like less than 3 weeks away, or whenever I'm at in the timeline. So you guys excited for that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, I can't wait. And we're going to get episodes of Bad Batch and Mandalorian the same day. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I already a little regretful here that I burned one of my few personal days this week. And I was like, I should have just saved it. I would never fake a sick day, but if I am sick on March 1st, I won't be too upset. So we'll see.
Darn work ethics.
Yes. Oh my. It's like, am I giving a test that day? Like, is there something I have to be there for? No, I'm just kidding. Well, let's jump in here. This is really exciting for a lot of reasons, and I thought if it's okay with you guys, I thought I'd just give a real quick, sort of broad brushstroke kind of breakdown here of these episodes, and since everybody listening, I'm sure has seen these, because we always say it would be kind of
spoiler
silly.
alert.
Yeah, like why did they tell us? Like, what happened? Like, okay, but basically this is just exciting for so many reasons, and we have, this 2-story arc where we're on Coruscant, which was exciting, of course, to see again, and really kind of going back to the roots of so many things we're familiar with in Star Wars and the aesthetic and everything, and we're gonna, I'm sure, break all that down. But essentially, at the core of this, in the Clone Conspiracy, Episode 7, We have some clone troopers who are dealing with the conscience battle in the wake of having been on Rampart's ship with the destruction, or for the destruction of Camino. One of whom, when he's attempting to go and report it to the Senate, Cade is taken out by some mysterious assassin. His friend Slip escapes, and then he's of course going into hiding. Then we're following largely the efforts of Senator Chuchi, or was that right? I always get her name wrong. Yeah, Senator Ryo Chuchi, trying to basically, I kind of wrote in my notes here, kind of trying to create, I guess, sort of Star Wars' version of the VA or something here. You know, she's trying to develop some sort of representation for clones, if not in the Senate chamber itself, which is an interesting theme they bring up, that they don't have representation, at least to get them the benefits they deserve, the treatment they deserve, and not have them treated like just something to be cast aside. So, and that's of course all brought up in the midst of Admiral Rampart's efforts, obviously on the part of the Emperor and Mazameda, kind of more secretly, but his efforts to get this defense recruiting bill passed. And then what we see ensue here is a very interesting sort of side path that Senator Chuchi ends up on she didn't expect, as she's trying to get the input that she wants from the clone troopers. That's when she runs into Slip. He reveals what's going on. She starts this sort of investigation herself, and ultimately we see at the end of that episode this really dramatic chase where basically everybody's taken out, including Slip, who before he dies informs them that all they need is to get to the bridge of Admiral Rampart's Venator, and they can access the data files they need to be able to implicate him in that attack. So that's where we leave off with Rex basically rescuing Senator Chuchi. We'll come back to the clone trooper assassin, of course, that they round up at the end. I want to get your guys' thoughts on him. It's kind of creepy. So that leaves us to this cliffhanger for the next episode, Truth and Consequences, episode 8, where that's where we pick up with the Bad Batch. Rex, of course, calls them. Their Hunter at least is reluctant to go to, obviously to go to Coruscant. It's the epicenter of the Empire. But they, of course, go there. They land in the Martez sisters' garage, which I missed that detail the first time around. That was kind of cool to go back there. And they launch this really awesome, at least I thought it was pretty fun, right? Just a good old-fashioned Star Wars extraction, which is always fun to see. Get the data they need, get it to the Senate. Everything seems to be going great. But then lo and behold, Palpatine somehow twists it all to his advantage yet again, and manages to get rid of Rampart and to get this defense recruiting bill passed, which is what he wanted. So, and so there's more details we'll get to, but that's the basic thrust of it. I don't want to give away the ending of episode 8 just yet, because that was very touching. I think we can come back to that. So, with that kind of broad brushstroke kind of overview, what are your guys' first impressions here from this? Maybe Kathryn, I'll start with you. What were your takeaways overall from these 2 episodes?
First of all, the music was amazing.
Yeah.
There were times where it felt mechanical, machine-like, when you had Chuchi almost being taken down by the assassin. You just had this like mechanical grind going on in the background, like this machine that just can't be stopped.
Yeah.
And then when Palpatine came up out of the floor, the alarm clang, just all of that was just, oh man, turning the bass up on that was awesome. That was great. And great visuals. I mean, the view of the Senate building in this episode had so much detail on it. I wanted to pause and just look it all over. Yeah. 'Cause there's like more windows, more lights, just everything just had a little bit more like depth.
Amen. Jason, how about you?
Well, I was really interested in the title. I thought, the clone conspiracy, are they, after watching the episode, are they talking about the conspiracy trying to hide the destruction of Camino, or is it the conspiracy of the clone troopers trying to out Rampart, or
right,
because they're trying to make if a conspiracy is people colluding together to, commit a crime. Well, Rampart's trying to make everything legal in the Senate so that what he did wasn't a crime.
Right.
So then it's the clone troopers that are committing the crime by, going against him, and essentially treason if you really look at it. But
yeah, that title took me right to an episode of in the Clone Wars with Fives and trying to like get out the information that he learned.
Right.
Knowing that there was something going on. I was like right to that. And then they opened with the bar scene and it was like, oh my gosh, this is happening all over again. The clones know information that has to get out.
Well, and to just keep, like it's continuing that story too, right? Like it's this next step. And I mean, because it was Five's information that helped Rex, ultimately be able to resist a little bit and get his chip out. Like it's amazing how they connect all this, right? And how everybody's still sort of living that out. And I have to laugh, Kathryn, because I wrote the top thing I have in my margin says Kevin Kiner rocks, like underlined, because of the music, just like the machine stuff you said, I was totally thinking like the Terminator, like, and even some of like in the factory, and it just really had that creepy feel to it. That was so well done. Well, if we jump back here, I thought I'd ask you guys too about getting to the Senate, and so I don't know if there is anything specifically about that kickoff scene that you wanted to go to in more depth. If not,
I got throwbacks to episode 2, like the scene where Padme's, they're trying to assassinate Padme, and then Anakin and Obi-Wan are chasing the assassin. It was almost, there was a whole lot of callbacks to that. And I kind of wrote down here on my notes that, the original donor was the assassin, the second assassin after the first one failed, in episode 2. And then it's the clone that's an assassin this time, but same DNA.
Right. Copy paste.
Yeah.
Like basically. Yeah.
But the scene really looked very much like episode 2, and when they get into traffic, when Slip jumps on that speeder and he has to go into traffic and all that jazz. So it looked very similar to
the
that.
sound effects too, because then that's always something that's I think I just take it for granted a lot, but like it's just, you hear those little things, you hear that particular engine running, you hear that particular kind of blaster, and it just, every time, like the audio memory is just so cool to me every time with this, it's just like, it just doesn't quite, it's, if it's a little bit off, like, oh, that's not quite the right blaster sound or something, but it was just such an awesome visual, like you said too, Kathryn, the landscapes or the cityscapes, it's, to me, I don't think the live action CGI is any better than the animated. It's just incredible.
The graphics and the details that they had just in that one scene of Slip taking the speeder over the edge.
Yeah.
Just the movement in his body, you really felt like he's falling over the edge.
Yeah.
And then the little flap of his hat.
Right.
And him grabbing onto it. It's like, it just all felt so intense, so real. It was great. I have to say one thing, though. As soon as I saw Slip, the first person I thought of was Jim Caviezel.
Oh, really?
It was like the way he was holding his face and looking, he looked like him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I seeing this so strongly? And it was because of Jim's movie Infidel.
Oh, yeah.
The way his look. Oh, sorry about that. And his beard and everything. And it was just.
Oh, wow.
And just the intensity of his look. I was like, oh, what's going on here? Why do I keep, pairing those two together? But it kind of worked out.
That is funny. I hadn't thought of that. Wow. Yeah, it's funny, the just something as simple as like the clouds, like the clouds in Coruscant, and I'm just looking at that. I'm like, that, like I know we've had this technology for a while and it's been developing and everything, and it should be like something that, we could so easily be unappreciative of, but I'm grateful that, like, that is really awesome. Like, I still have that sense of awe when I see that.
There are some scenes where it's hard to tell that you're even watching a CG animation.
Yeah.
That in the last episode, when they go to that space station where all the robots are, that space station was just amazing.
Yeah.
Man, and the background, it looked like episode 4. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, and I don't know. And Kathryn, as an artist, I've been wondering about this. It's incredible. I love in good animation when there's the little details, like the little details that would matter if you were using a real camera, but there are no cameras. Like it's an animated thing, and the fact that they think about like shade and light and depth and like all of that is just. It would not be as good without every little detail like that. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, there's actually a nice little video, I think, on Disney Plus that talks about that, about camera position and lighting and just the color to set mood.
Yeah.
And you can really feel that even in this episode when he takes off with the land speeder and you end up in this dark, dusty browns and grays, and just everything is like gloom and doom as he's trying to find a spot to call Rex. It was just, oh man, it was just, when you get into the emotion of the color.
Oh my gosh. Well, and then of course, if we jump to the Senate real quick, that's always cool to see, and I was just thinking, I don't know what it is, if it's like, I enjoyed the very brief Senate scene or two that they had. I think it was just one scene, maybe it was two, in Andor. Like that was cool, like to see live action. But again, this is one where I was like, I don't know if it's just, this just almost felt more real. Like, I don't know if it's because like just for what they were trying to do for that scene, they were really focusing on Mon Mothma. This had
there was more discussion,
pullback, right? Yeah, and but the connection too, and where they can potentially overlap. As they do Andor season 2 and just any of these jumps around the timeline, because we saw Senator, is it Tinra Pamlo, I think, who we saw in Rogue One, I think was where she's first introduced, but they had her here just at the beginning of that scene, and it was some neat continuity, some good thinking of all the people you could pull in there. It was nice to see some different faces, I thought.
Has anybody ever wondered why how the Senate got fixed? If you think back to episode 3, and that was after he announced that it's going to be an empire. He starts destroying. They have the battle with him and Yoda, and they destroy everything. And here, Bad Batch is a few months, a year or two maybe after Revenge of the Sith, and the Senate's back. Yeah. I mean, I always took that as, symbolism of him destroying the Senate, but now it's all fixed and he's using the Senate to his whims again.
I think it's so funny, like, to imagine him, like, right where we see, like, they're searching for Yoda and like, we haven't found him, and he's like, then he's not dead, and all this, and like the Emperor's there, and then he's getting ready to get his shuttle and stuff to go for Vader. And it would be funny if, like, right after that cut, like, he just turns to them and he's like the maintenance crew shows up and he's like, yeah, clean all of this up. I have something to do on Mustafar.
A scene after a football game when you see all the sweepers come out trying to clean up the popcorn mess.
Oh my gosh. That would, I mean, if I just lost his name. If Seth Green has not done something like that on Robot Chicken, that has to be something that he does at some point. Like, get this cleaned up quickly. Like, so, but we do see this. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
It was nice to see the comparison between the Senate still they're trying to function. Palpatine's obviously working around them continually, right, compared with that, and within Andor, where you can see the Senate is, barely there. Hardly anyone shows up. And when they do, if you speak out in any way against the Empire, it's like everybody shuts off and see ya.
Right. Yeah. No, and that's not, I mean, what, like, I guess is that what, 10? I'm forgetting now. So Andor is it 5 BBY, I think, or something? It's more than 10 years after this, but not a whole lot more. So like it's very believable.
The next season will be the next 4 years, right, to Rogue One.
Yeah. So, and like you were saying, Jason, like this isn't more than a year, probably, or so after Revenge of the Sith.
At this point, it's got to be more than a year.
Yeah. So, but we're still 12, 13 years or something away from Andor. So I think that's a very believable timeline when you see that, like, this is the moment. Now we know, of course, that as Palpatine says, right, this new era heralded by the Imperial Stormtrooper. That was so chilling. But getting ahead of myself with that, but just seeing, like, a very believable pacing of this, I think, because I think we've all been wondering, when do certain things happen? How does it happen? And it's just, I'm really enjoying how they are answering those questions, or they're moving the ball down the field, so to speak, right? So with that in mind, let me just ask you guys here, with Senator Chuchi's investigation, any thoughts on her as a character and this sort of crusade she has, like, whatever her, like, I don't know exactly what all her motivations are, but what do you think about her motivation, her interest in trying to see that these soldiers get this treatment that they deserve, and some of the bigger questions that raises?
I don't know, Chuchi, it's like, I was so excited to see her because I loved all the stories she was in before. So I had to go back and rewatch all of those. I
didn't get a chance yet. Yeah.
You could really see her heart for trying to get the right thing done. Because she was always trying to make things right. She had to settle a dispute even within her own home system, where the leader of her people was trying to take out natives that lived on the planet next door to where she lived, and it was like, hey, this is our planet, and she's like, no, they were here first, and just trying to, you just see how she sympathizes with people, and that's where she had met Rex for the first time, so she knew him. So it was neat just to see all those connections coming into play.
I think she was honest too. She was, when she goes to the 79s club, she's talking to all the soldiers and she's saying, you guys aren't going to have a choice. I'm not going to be able to stop this bill, but if you at least work with me, I can try to help you and get you pensions, and, so that you're not just left by the wayside. Yeah. But she's also honest to him. She's not lying to him. Right.
She's not. Notice how long she was there?
Yeah. It
looked like she arrived at night and stayed with them till morning.
And she was having a drink with them.
Yeah. Breaking bread, having a drink. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think something that really stood out to me too was, that she's willing to push back, and it's not a pleasant thing to get into with these guys. Like, these guys are they've been literally, this is what's so neat from a Catholic perspective. It's difficult to exactly find an analog for it, because here's these guys that are, every one of them, genetically engineered specifically for this mission, right, for this mindset, and yet they are individuals and they have consciences, and there's all these really cool Catholic themes we could get into. But I was so impressed with her having the courage to just really push back and say, listen, like, I respect this. Yeah, you're a warrior. You're gonna get old. And that's not a pleasant thing, right? And we can become delusional even about it, and I think that's such an important message, I think, for our culture, like, not just a military sort of argument, but how often we see that all around us. Everyone's is sometimes, I think, getting to a dangerous level of, again, potential delusion, but at least, kind of not planning adequately, or not paying attention and discerning what you should be sort of prioritizing right now, because you're so attached to what came before. So I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but that was something that jumped out at me. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that specifically, that aspect of her chat with them.
What hit me is she sees them as people, as individual people, where the Kaminoans just call them property. Mm-hmm. And you get that, whoever thinks of them as just property, they were bought and purchased and created for this one job. The job is done. They're disposable. Like they said, the Empire just gets rid of us. But when they see them as individual people, And the few people that do that, you can't just throw them away. That's why Rex is on his mission to save as many as he can.
Well, in the next episode, they're Omega and Chuchi and Organa are walking through the city, and in the background there's a a voice talking to the people or whatever, and it says, "A new military comprised of our own citizens will usher in a new era of safety and security." They don't even consider them citizens,
right?
They're saying they're nothing. They're not, they have no representation in the Senate. They have no voice. They are nothing. It seems like the Empire and most everybody gives droids, more value than these people. They are completely expendable.
They they basically just see them as a sort of a sophisticated weapon system. So like, you're not going to give like a pod in the Senate, to a blaster rifle. Like it's a rifle. This is just one that can, think a little bit more effectively and
but then that becomes their downfall because, maybe I'm getting ahead, but when Palpatine says, he's trying to twist the Senate back to voting for the defense bill, he says almost exactly what the others. He says, "We'll usher in a new era heralded by the Imperial Stormtrooper," but he's saying that before that he said that their blind order following is what destroyed Camino. And so he's using Order 66 and the fact that he told them to do all these bad things, he's using it to twist it and say, we don't need him anymore.
Yeah. Just when I thought I couldn't detest that man more. And even knowing like where his story leads decades after this, and I'm like, oh, that guy. But yeah, it's so, you're so right. And I think, if we look at let me jump back here a little bit, because I think there's another kind of similar connection with this, how do I put it, with this investigation, that Chuchi kind of is launching into, and the sort of, it kind of dovetails right with her meeting with Rampart, right? And so she's, to her credit, she doesn't immediately believe Slib, she's like, that's a serious accusation, and it is, and he's like, yeah, go look into it, and trusts that she'll, do the legwork, and she's there meeting with Rampart and everything, and he's just such a snake, sitting there, and you can, I don't know where exactly the moment was. I think it's when, because her demeanor changes, and then she asks that question, like, hey, how come you survived? That seemed to me like the first moment where she started to be like, hey, he might be onto something. And is that your guys' take too? I think that was kind of,
I could see the reveal. She could see it in his face. She's looking at his face and she knows he's not telling the truth.
Yeah.
She knows it immediately just by looking at him.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's a piece of work, because as much as they set him up in the first season, I was pretty shocked at the end of, was it episode 2 this season, where he just blasts that, Captain Wilco or Commander Wilco. He's like, I know you want to falsify the report. Bang. Like he's not just going around with that attitude. He's actively, throwing these guys off the board when he's done playing the piece, But that's what's so, and I don't feel sorry for him, but it's, he makes that mistake that so many of these folks do, right? Whenever they're dealing with the dark side, where they think that they're going to be treated differently than the troopers. It's just like Dooku. Dooku really thought, well, he was different, and then Palpatine, kill him now. No, I'm done with him. It's the same attitude, Oh
yeah. What I want to know is, why didn't Rampart yell out, I didn't give the original order?
Yeah.
Tarkin gave the order.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
He said he's
I went back and watched it. Why wouldn't he yell out, I was following orders.
Yeah, what's he got to lose now?
Throw Tarkin under the bus.
And even if he doesn't know, I mean, I don't know if it's like a terrorist cell type organization that they have to some degree where there's compartmental information and stuff. Like I never got the impression that like Palpatine and Rampart are like hanging out, but I definitely know that Rampart's affiliated with Tarkin, so I'm sure we'll see Tarkin again in this season because I don't think we'll see much, if anything, of Rampart again. I don't know, maybe.
Well, it makes me wonder, if he would have gotten the vote to pass, if, maybe he'd have been promoted and all that, and then he failed. Mm-hmm. He got exposed and all that. So Palpatine has to come in and, fix it. I guess in his mind, he had to go in there and fix it. And he's like, well, Rampart didn't do his job. He failed. So he's fired or worse,
Well, I have no doubt. Like my assumption is that like Palpatine had like the same footage ready to go. Like at a moment, so like, look what we've discovered. So like even if the
vote failed,
right. Like the batch wouldn't have pulled that off, even if they hadn't pulled off the extraction. Like I don't think he's depending on them. But so with Mon Mothma, when she's talking to, I can't remember her banker friend's name, but I remember that scene where she's talking to him and thinking of welcoming him in, and she says something like, I'm going to tell you something that only 3 people in the whole galaxy know. And at that point of the story, I was like, Luthen, like Luthen's assistant, because they both know. And then I'm like, who's the third one? I'm like, oh, it's probably Bail, but it wasn't. It was Vel. It was her cousin, which we see later in that. So that was something I wasn't anticipating. So that's something where, it's cool. It's always cool to see Bail. I'm always like, even though I know where his story leads, I always feel nervous for him.
Was it in the 3rd or 2nd movie that we saw Bail and Mon Mothma talking to each other? Like in a way that seemed secretly like, hey, something's not right here.
I'm not sure. You mean in like the prequels or?
Yeah.
I know there was like a deleted scene with Genevieve.
An episode 3 deleted scene.
That was it. Yeah. Cause I forgot that was her. I saw that in a recent thing. And then they brought her back when they made Rogue One, and then now in the show, and she's great. But I think they're in that scene together, but I don't remember how. It's not the Empire yet, but I don't remember how sort of conspiratorially. I don't even know what that word would be. In how much of a conspiratorial manner?
Well, Padme was in that deleted scene.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so It makes you think that if she wouldn't have died, would she have been a rebel against Darth Vader,
Yeah. I mean,
shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Somebody online was pointing out, I was reading, they made a great point that just basically like everything Chuchi's doing in this episode or these episodes is like really the spirit of Padme. And I think that's a good point,
Ahsoka too.
Oh yeah, totally.
Well, you think about it, I think they're about the same age.
Right. Yeah.
And you mentioned Ahsoka. There's so many connections to Ahsoka throughout all these episodes.
Yeah.
You always see just that little weaving of Ahsoka was with these people. And then there's just that little bit of Ahsoka's mentality woven through all of it.
It makes you wonder if she's talking to Rex behind the scenes.
Wouldn't be surprised.
All right, we got to get to this assassin, though.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's the last thing I want to say about Ahsoka was the Ahsoka novel that was really good that talked about some of the aftermath. I know there's a segment in there where she has a lot of interaction with Bail, which of course then she did in that Tales of the Jedi too, which was pretty sweet. So yeah, but yeah, the assassin. What did you want to bring up in particular about him, Kathryn? What's your take on this guy?
Besides the fact, up until the end when we saw his face, I thought for sure it was going to be Crosshair.
That's what I thought too.
Everything about it, the feel, and the other thing that like kind of made me go, wait, what's going on? And I had to watch a lot more episodes of previous shows, was the fact that he was built like Crosshair.
Yeah.
He was a little longer, a little leaner.
Right.
And I was like, what's going on here with this guy? And I almost wondered, because there were several times where they mentioned different next generation clone techniques that I can never say the name. help me out here.
Kaminoans.
There we go. That they were working on to try to stay in good with the Empire, that they had some next gen stuff coming up. And they always said, we only need one of them to keep this going. And they had Crosshair for a while. So did they do a little tweaking?
Yeah. No, I was really surprised. Jason, were you thinking the same thing?
Nope.
Oh, is it?
That one's new to me. And I mean, the only pushback I would have on that slightly is that the assassin missed. And Crosshair doesn't. But otherwise, I could see it.
Yeah, I think there would have been some benefit to it from the standpoint of, we haven't seen him in a while. And then the last time we saw him, he just cold-blooded executed that lady, And then, of course, Cody gives him that little speech on his way out. But, and he's thinking about it. But, he thinks about a lot of stuff people say to him.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to, and again, I'm the further that his storyline goes, the more I'm excited about it, because I've been so wrong. Not that I really actually predicted anything with him, but I really don't think I expected my question about where he's going to end up and to continue and to deepen. I really don't know what's going to happen with him.
Yeah, I just wonder, what was his last mission assignment? I thought for sure it would have some tie-in with this. I kept waiting for it to happen, but
I feel like we got to get him soon. I mean, we're halfway through the season, and by the way, I made a lame joke here in my notes because when he said they interrogate briefly, right, this assassin guy, and we don't get a whole lot about him. His identity's wiped. He doesn't have his number. Even Tech, right, is shocked at that and is like, I was unaware that was possible, But then he says, you're on the wrong side, Captain Rex. And he says, what does that make you? And he says, a believer. And he bites the thing like the dude in Mandalorian did. And the suicide electrical thing in his tooth.
The death tooth.
But my lame joke was I wrote, what's with the believer? And then I wrote, he must have seen her face. LOL.
Okay, there's a video.
This is so
There's a video on YouTube
either get that
I guess
or you don't know.
has been out for 5 years now. It's a clone montage, and it's set to Believer by Imagine Dragons.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
And it's the coolest thing, and I'm going, wait, is that a kind of a little tribute to that?
A little meta thing.
Or Filoni and Favreau were feeding the YouTube people some info.
The only thing that was interesting is that assassin did say to Rex the same thing that Crosshair said to a Hunter. You're on the wrong side.
Yeah.
And I was going, okay, now I'm really going, there's got to be a connection somehow, some way.
Well, it's so chilling because his attitude is not the same as the clones who are just you could say maybe somewhat robotic, but not robotic, but very duty minded. They're very, mission driven. They're, the company men in some sense, so to speak. But this dude, this guy feels like the kind of propagandized, brainwashed kind of soldier that they're going for in the recruiting stuff, but he's a clone. So there was an interesting kind of crossover.
And if what Kathryn is saying that, it could be true that maybe he's a clone of Crosshair or something, that he's got that same mentality. And that's what they liked Crosshair for, was because he was even though he doesn't have his chip, he's still following those orders all the way to the point of, killing that essentially innocent girl, or the princess or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe they were well, that's the kind of clone we need.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do, of course, right after this, we go into episode 8. Now we really get, the titular characters back on the scene here, of course, who, to be fair, it's not quite, to the level of Book of Boba Fett, where it's getting uncomfortable, where you're where are the guys that the show is named after? which some people were and I go back and forth on it, but it was weird, to be I haven't seen Boba Fett in a while. But no, so we get these guys back. I love how, now, I'm not advocating sort of irresponsible parenting or guardianship by putting like, a tweener, like kid that you're supposed to be responsible for in harm's way. But I love how much they trust her, and I love how like responsible Omega is, and like she's like such a legitimate teammate. She's not like, I think they could have made this show where like every week it's like Omega's in trouble and they have to save her again. I love that that's not what it's like. She is absolutely awesome.
I thought that when she said she wanted to go with the senator, everybody be like, "Oh no, you can't do that." And everybody's like, "Yeah, that'll work."
Sure. You go undercover. Like, what? Okay.
And then I had to rewatch to go, wait a minute, did Rampart never see her before?
I know, that's what I was thinking too. How did she walk through the Senate?
When they're walking down the hallway going, "Oh my gosh, they're going to see her." Yeah.
Tarkin saw her, I believe, because I think when he visits, she's up there with Nala, but yeah, I can't. I guess they know. I guess Rampart never saw her. But I was like, could have sworn, because when they escaped with her,
Tarkin did not know she was a clone. They did mention that in the first season, that he's not aware of her. He assumed Tech was one of the 5,
right?
And not her.
That's right. And that was part of Nala was trying to protect her.
Yeah.
Or Echo. Yeah, Echo. Yeah.
Echo, yeah. Oh, Echo. Sorry.
Right.
Echo. Yeah.
I forgot that. Yeah, that's a good one. Because I was thinking about when they escape with Omega, because like when they go back at the end, nobody sees, because like, Rampart's off on his ship and everything, so he doesn't see her then. So I was thinking, like, did he see her when they escape? And no, because that whole exchange in the cargo bay and everything was Crosshair and his dudes. Rampart wasn't around for that. So wow, that's one of those things, like that little detail really could have screwed things up.
Yeah.
But oh my, I love when she says, just the innocence though, she's like, "What do senators do?" And she's like, "Well, we help the galaxy." And she gives her little like 10-second pitch, and she's like, "But what does that mean?" It's like that is a good question. So that was good.
I thought it was interesting when she's being introduced to Senator, when the whole Bad Batch is being introduced to Senator Chuchi, they make a point for Omega to say hello when everybody else is just standing there. She wants to, "Hey, look at me. I'm here too. I'm part of this crew."
Right.
Oh yeah.
Well, even that too, like, to have her come so far from being someone who's raised in such a completely isolated fashion that when she sees dirt for the first time, it's just this unbelievable thing, to now like Rex is like, "I want you guys to see something, dead guy, and she's just like, like, guys, she's like 12 years old. Look at you. But no, she's, obviously.
Right, exactly. She's a year older than them.
She's older than them. Right. That's right. Or 13, whatever. Yeah. Yeah. I loved how Tech just delivered that line in the first season. Technically, she's older than we are. So, but yeah, I mean, it's, I wasn't familiar with the senator that they went to visit. Was it Halle Bertoni?
Yeah, Halle Bertoni.
Which they said that she had been in some, like, and I watched all of Clone Wars, but I need to do a rewatch of that whole season or series because it's been too long, and I'm forgetting, who's who. I know, like, when on Secrets of Star Wars, like in the last couple of years ago, when we needed filler because they weren't releasing new content every week for like months at a time, we had done some shows where we went back and looked at certain arcs, like Mandalorians and Clone Wars or Ahsoka and Clone Wars, and so it's been a while since I've done that. But do you guys remember her character before? Or
yeah, I could not forget that face.
Yeah.
Especially with her makeup and her old lady kind of scary look.
Right. She kind of has like that, like her posture, her demeanor is very dismissive and kind of arrogant, and that was an interesting character.
Yeah, I was talking about the Kaminoans with a friend of mine, and you think about how tall and stretched out their necks are, and I swear they did that just so they could always feel superior to anyone else that they were with. It's like, my head is so high above yours.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's so little.
It's the size of softball. That's so strange. They are, in my opinion, they're among the most sort of traditional kind of old school, like, the Greys kind of, like your classic sci-fi, right? Kind of creature. You can kind of get, I always get that mid 20th century sci-fi kind of vibe off them, Oh
yeah.
Something that, like, that's the kind of thing George Lucas would be thinking about when he's like 10, and like sketching stuff out or just thinking about creatures and things. So
like the big long spindly alien on Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, is there anything about the extraction? There wasn't anything in particular about the extraction scene that was, at least in my opinion, that was so completely unexpected or out of the norm that it jumped out at me that I wanted to point it out, other than, I just love some of the banter was fun, right? And Wrecker holding on and Rex saying, like, he's still not better with the heights, and like, this is him better. Like, it was so good, to keep bringing that up in a funny way. Yeah. And then Tech's thing about, like, like, nice job with the landing. He's like, I was off by 6.4 meters, but not my best work,
I did enjoy in fact, I wrote it in my notes. I enjoyed their escape. And I was, when he says that, I was off by 6.4. I could do better.
Oh yeah.
Well, what like an unconventional escape pod maneuver. Like, let's shoot it over that way. Like,
all we need to do is eject. I'll do the rest.
Yeah. But visually, the scale of the ship in the shipyard was just phenomenal. And it was funny
when they jump off the little speeder and they're on top of the ship and it's from far back, they just like little ants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was neat just to see, because they're talking about retrofitting the ships. And it's like, oh, this is where they're starting to change their shape and their design. And but it made me think about the times where it's like, you see someone scuba diving down on a big ship and it just kind of looms there in the dark, and it's kind of like a creepy, overwhelming feeling. And it's just kind of had that feeling to it, just the way it was all dark. It's so big on the screen.
It was so cool. And you're starting to see that Imperial aesthetic more, like with like the real kind of gunmetal, kind of color, and those white kind of oval lights and stuff, kind of elongated around, and it just feels like those little details where I'm like, that looks like the Death Star, like Episode 4 Star Destroyer, Episode 5, and I'm enjoying those little details. But then they go, of course. Well, actually, one military criticism I had was, like they know darn well that like this is going to trigger an alarm. They just said that, and like nobody takes cover. Like they're just standing there waiting.
Well, they shot the door.
We better lock that door. Yeah, and he's like,
they shot the door.
That's all it takes. Like, oh my gosh. But of course, then they get back to the Senate. They don't have the evidence yet, but the vote's coming up, and Senator Chuchi is basically putting herself out on a limb to be like, I'm gonna roll the dice on this one. I accuse you, like in front of everybody, and she brings it up, and Rampart's trying to waffle around with it a little bit, of course. And then we already alluded to this, but of course they show they get the evidence in time. They show the footage of the destruction of Tapoka City,
which is a cool projector.
Yes, absolutely. And then Kathryn, you brought up, like, I don't know what it was. It just, we knew from the trailer, which I kind of wish they hadn't shown it now, that Palpatine would come up, but the hair went up on my neck. Like, everybody stops. Rampart goes to attention, and the music, everything. Oh, that was so creepy.
Especially with him rising through the destruction. Yeah. It was just like, it brought back the fight with him and Yoda. Everything's just chaos flying all over the place.
Yeah, and that's, we saw the hologram of him, which was so cool, of course, in Obi-Wan Kenobi, but we saw the hologram of him giving it was the speech from Revenge of the Sith right at the beginning of Bad Batch Season 1, but if I remember correctly, I think it was just the audio from the movie with the new animated version of it to kind of show like where they were during the speech. But to have, Ian McDiarmid back, and like, I mean, I was just like, oh gosh, like every time he talks, I'm just like, it's him. It's new Star Wars for Ian. Like, oh, that was awesome.
Because he more and more sounds like the Emperor from Return of the Jedi. And of course, now he's a whole lot closer to that age.
Right. Probably doesn't take as much prep.
Yeah, not near as much makeup.
Yeah.
I think he was, so I'm 39, and I think he was 39 when he played that role in Empire Strikes Back. It was 39 or 40, and with all the makeup and everything, if I remember correctly. But now, maybe it doesn't need as much. Did you guys see the clip, by the way, of him in the behind the scenes thing of Obi-Wan, where he's just standing there in all the garb and he's like going over his lines, but he's like talking like himself, or he's like practicing, and they're giving him direction. He's like, oh yeah. And it was just so weird seeing like the Emperor, like receiving stage directions and stuff and like doing what someone else says. It's like this weird, no, that's not right. So what did you guys like? How did you react to? Because I did not see this coming. I didn't know where he'd go with this. How'd you think about the way he played this? We talked about a little bit earlier.
Well, it's like he was going to win whichever way he won it. Whatever way it went, he was going to win.
Yeah.
Is Rampart going to get promoted out of the deal? Well, not anymore, because he failed. I didn't even think about it, that there was the third option, that if they went to a vote and the Senate voted no, he could still come back with that footage and say, the clones are bad for us and we need to switch to the other. He was going to win no matter what.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And just the contrast between the clone and Omega talking about, we did the right thing. We told the truth. We did the right thing. What's happening? Like, we didn't win. We did the right thing, but we didn't win. So I thought that was an interesting contrast between then the Emperor essentially taking over, trumping anything anyone tries to do. So you feel at a loss. What else can you do?
And that, and poor Omega, who's not naive, but she's young, and she's just, how could this happen? And, and then on top of that, of course, this dramatic parting, which I was surprised, but I think it's an interesting move too. That now we're down to just the like official Bad Batchers in terms of the defective clones, quote unquote, as they called them, minus Crosshair. But Echo is such a part of that. But he bridges these. He's a Clone Wars series character, and then here, and what I wrote down was, this is terrible. I wrote down Echo and Omega tears, because I did tear up because I thought it was so beautifully done. And then I wrote, he is so a goner. No. Because I don't know when, but you can't help but think, well, when Kanan and Ezra and those guys, find Rex and all the vets with pot bellies living on the Imperial Walker in the desert, like 17 or so, 18 years from now, Echo's not with them, so, you've got Wolf, you've got Gregor, you've got Rex, but, Echo, you imagine is probably one who doesn't make it to the original trilogy. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
All I know is I got emotionally suckered into this one.
Yeah.
I did not see it coming, and I was so like, oh, look at how nice Omega and Echo are getting along in the beginning, and then all of a sudden he leaves, and I'm like, what? Cry. I was just like, no, he can't leave. I just picture him somewhere in a happy place.
It ties in some of the episodes that, we're all sitting here thinking, man, that was just a one-off adventure for the crew, and but there were always those bits and pieces of Echo and Hunter talking, and Echo saying, we need to be doing more, and well, maybe that time's not yet. And you could just see it in his face and his demeanor that he just didn't feel like he should be just sitting. And now he has that opportunity. So they were kind of setting that up for a little bit.
I guess, yeah, because even
hindsight 2020,
right? Like, because episode 2, when he and he and I think it was with him and Tech and Omega, right? Or in that hut with that local guy on, I'm forgetting Dooku's planet's name now, but, and then Wrecker and Hunter are off on their mission when they get separated because of the container thing. But there's a good chunk of that episode, right? All those one-on-one, like Echo and Omega, and now, yeah, like you said, it's, that's why. That's cold.
Just pull
now
the
if she starts hanging out with Tech or Wrecker all the time, I'm gonna be like, no, split it up. Groups, always in the groups,
So I was so happy they started giving her more like female figures to hang out with and look up to, so she doesn't get her heart broken as all they leave her.
Well, did she met the Martez sisters, right? That was in episode season 1, I think, right? Was that? I don't remember exactly the context.
They saved her in that factory.
Right.
The destruction facility, the droid destruction facility.
They were trying to get that strategic, droid. I can't remember the name of the thing, the specific kind of droid, but So she's met them. She's met Hera. Like we can bring them back. And then who's the new Wanda Sykes' pirate character? I can't remember, but she's
Fee.
Yeah, she's around somewhere, so she'll be back. I didn't get to talk to anyone about that episode. I wasn't on that, but that thing was totally like a War of the Worlds type thing. That thing was bizarre, but
and they're gonna be going on a Grail quest at some point.
Well, the next episode's called The Crossing, I think. So that's there's a million things that could mean, So that's the kind of title it gets me wondering, Like if they, and they want to keep them, of course, somewhat mysterious, because I think if you just call an episode like Hanging Out with Sid, it's like, well, I think I'll sit this one out, maybe. Like, no offense to Rhea Perlman, but oh my goodness. Do you think, I was saying when she first showed up in season 1, this is just a quick side note, but I thought of all the voices I'd love to hear make it into Star Wars. I think Rhea Perlman and Danny DeVito got divorced, sadly, in the last year or so, but they were together for decades. And I was thinking at the time, like, can you imagine Danny DeVito, in Star Wars? I don't think he's ever been, but that would be an interesting voice to hear.
That would be good.
Well, any last thoughts you guys have on these 2 episodes, or any guesses at where we're going next, or just
Well, I kind of mentioned it when we were talking about Andor's. Why does the Empire need this military? That's where this is going. Is they're voting, or Palpatine's already made up his mind that it's going to happen. The new stormtrooper bill, but why are they? I know he wants to fund his. I think it's all part of funding the Death Star, but from. If I'm standing back looking at it going, okay, he said he's going to keep us, everything's going to be fine because we're going to be all part of the new empire, and, we're all going to be one happy galaxy. Why do we need this military?
Well, he got rid of all the peacekeepers, the Jedis, and now you've got outer rim planets where all the scoundrels took off to that are kicking back, so... That's all it is. Yeah. He's just trying to own his space with a lot of force. That's what I think.
Well, and I imagine something we're going to see more fleshed out in Mandalorian, I think, just in terms of the timeline, is because I can't help but wonder, say what you will about the sequel trilogy, it's canon, so you can't help but wonder how far back did the whole like Sith Eternal Exegol stuff start, because I don't think that came out of nowhere after Return of the Jedi. I think that it's probably some of that's in his mind too, which wouldn't probably involve any of these troops, but like it makes you wonder, like, how much time does this guy have? Like, I would love to see someone write a comedy book of some kind on like, time management with Sheev Palpatine, because it's just like, man, this guy really knows how to pull a lot of strings at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys are good, I'll just go ahead and wrap it up here for us for this week. This has been exciting. But that's it for us for now. But listeners, as always, we'd love to know what you thought about this episode, or these episodes, I should say, of the Bad Batch. So please let us know. You can email us at at sqpn.com, or you can visit the StarQuest Discord community over at sqpn.com/discord. You can find any StarQuest related stuff that you want on Facebook over at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia and on Twitter at sqpn. Make sure to always, if you want to check out previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars, which there's a lot of good ones to go back and check out. Those are over at sqpn.com/Star Wars. We want to take a moment now very quickly to make sure we thank all of our Secrets of Star Wars patrons. And in a special way this week, we thank Rob H., Frank C., Claire R., David G., and Grant S. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Please tell all your friends, and I mean all of them, to follow The Secrets of Star Wars on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite podcast app, or on SQPN's YouTube channel, where you should definitely subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you can see any updates that we put up there. So do that as soon as possible, please. We would also appreciate it if you'd leave us a nice review and a rating over on Apple Podcasts. You can do that at Spotify also, and anywhere else you can do that sort of thing would be helpful. Last but not least, don't forget to visit sqpn.com/merch. I don't know if you guys have checked this out in a while. I was just looking at that. You can get, we have t-shirts, phone cases, magnets. You can get a skateboard on there. I just discovered. I'm not a skateboarder, but yeah, so what are you waiting for? Get over there and get something Secrets of Star Wars. You'll love it. So for us, though, we'll be back next week. Our crew, I don't know who all's on that show off the top of my head, but they're going to be talking about Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 9, The Crossing. So mark your calendars because you will definitely not want to miss it. So until next time, Kathryn Laffrey, thank you so much for joining us and sharing the Secrets of Star Wars tonight.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yes, absolutely. And Jason Eugea, same to you. Thanks so much for joining us tonight as well.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
And once again, I'm Mike Creavey. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy, The Catholics of Oz. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Oz.